Hello, today I am going to share a repair that I did recently on an old violin that is about 260 years old. Now the instrument was hanging on a wall and unfortunately the player had to leave Sydney and then COVID struck and he couldn't actually get back. And when he got back, the violin had literally fallen apart. There was a lot of damage, there's a lot of repair to be done, and the repair I'm going to share with you today is at the foot of the neck. It's called doubling the button, which is, this is a different instrument. This is the button here, and where it attaches to the back of the instrument. Imagine this being a neck, and it attaches here, and that area needs to be very strong. So the repair I'm going to show you is doubling the button, and it's really interesting. It'll teach you quite a lot about the structure of a violin and the structural strength that certain parts of the violin need, especially the neck, the base of the neck. So I hope you enjoy the process. So the first thing I need to do here is separate the old button, or what's left of it, from the neck and the bottom block. So I've still got a fair way to go. I'm popping a bit of metho in here just to kind of get this. Look, if you're not a very skilled woodworker, don't try this stuff at home on better instruments. Leave that to someone who's got the training to work on instruments, because if you don't have the training for it and you're working on an expensive instrument, you can really do a lot of damage. This is really strongly glued on, this button. That's probably why it stayed attached when the rest of the instrument split off. And you can really see the purfling has been cut through very deeply. So the purfling is the inlay on the instrument that you can see around here, and when that purfling channel is cut through too deeply, it can actually weaken this whole area, which is not a good idea. I just have to take it off very carefully because I don't want to damage any of this older button. Now with methylated spirits, it will also dissolve the varnish of the instrument, so I have to be very, very, very careful because I don't want any of the method to get on the varnish. So it basically evaporates very quickly, condenses, and because of that it actually loosens the hide glue at the same time. But I've nearly got this off now. One more little bit of methylated spirits. Here it comes. Okay, it split a tiny bit at the back here, but that's all right because that area will be doubled. But here it is. So my next step will be, I'll let that dry a little bit and clean it up, and then I'll glue it onto the back. While I'm there, the top block is just a little bit loose, so I am going to just glue it onto the top plate quickly. So I've got the top block all glued in. I'm going to put that aside and keep working on the back. Okay, so now I have to just soak the glue and clean it off. So by soaking the glue to clean this area, all I do is just add some cold water. Usually it'll probably have to soak for about 10 or 15 minutes. Now we wait. Okay, it's been over 15 minutes, so I will give these areas a bit of a clean, and then I will glue them together. I will probably not clamp them. I'll take a look how it all fits, but it sits in here quite firmly, so I probably won't clamp them because I don't want to. Just see. I'll get the shape much better without clamping, but take a look at this, what's happened here with the purfling, and that was done on the previous repair. Someone had cut right through, weakening that whole area. So, you know, it literally made the previous repair totally pointless. Anyway, I will glue this on now. I'm just going to heat the area, then I'm going to pop glue on, and then I'm just going to leave it. So I put glue on both surfaces. Just got to make sure that the shape of this, so this is a special clamp that sits on top, and then there's a second clamp that just allows me to push this in a tiny bit. I can see more glue squeezing out. Everything else seems to be fitting well, but just not that little area. Okay, this looks perfect now. I am just going to let that dry. It's not very strong, and I'm not gluing it to be very strong. I'm gluing it so that I can do the doubling, and the doubling is going to give the whole area all its strength. So I'll put that aside. I'm going to let that dry overnight. Alright, it's the next day. Let's see how this all came together. So today I'm just going to do the counter mould. Yeah, I've already got a rough counter mould because I recently did another repair. That means I don't have to use as much of the epoxy filler. Great. So I'll just get some clamps ready. I'll put some Glad wrap foil over the top of this. Then I will get the filler, put it on there. I'm going to try and mix it directly on here because that way I don't have to have this big mess. This is where it gets exciting. Okay, here we go. I was actually thinking of trying something different. I was thinking of actually spreading this onto the Glad wrap and then putting the Glad wrap on top of here because I keep getting little folds. I don't like it much, so I'm going to try this. So I've got the Glad wrap over here. Now this could go horribly wrong, but I'm going to try it. Just do a little bit here just to make sure that I've got to be quite fast because this stuff is hardening as we speak. Will it work? So, no, there's still folds, but there's less folds. I don't know, maybe it'll work. So the middle bit is the most important one. You can see it all squeezing out. Nice. That's what I'm after. Okay, just a tiny bit more up here. Okay, now we wait. It's the next morning. This will definitely have dried, so I'm just gonna take a look. Yeah, it's looking totally fine. It's got a couple of folds in it, but that won't be an issue at all. Yeah, I'm gonna put on 2 clamps. Let's have a look. So I have to strengthen the edge all the way to here where it came off and where it's been, yet again, the purfling's been cut through the edge. It's a problem that, yeah, unfortunately it comes up quite often. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I've sort of rough marked where it has to go. So I'm just going to take out a little bit of timber and then, well, after that I'll use a file or a rasp. That's actually not working anywhere near as well as I'd like it to because the grain's running in the wrong direction. So I'm just going to start using the file. So what I want to do here is I want to go about halfway, like half the thickness of the back and double that. So the total thickness is about 3 millimeters. So I'm thinking of going 1.5 millimeters into the plate. So what's important here that this area here is totally straight. Now if I run a file along here like this, usually what happens on a small surface like that, you just can't help yourself and you accidentally go like this just a little bit and it becomes rounded. So what I'm going to do is I am literally going to attach a little piece of wood, like I'll just clamp a little piece of wood here as a guide. That way I've got a much wider area that I'm filing and it'll be a lot more straight. Just what I want to make sure, you can see that the timber they used to use back there really isn't very refined. You should have a look at the timber on the top. I mean, it's really wide grain. I mean, I think the instrument sounds great, but the timber just looks kind of plain. Right, let's prepare this piece of wood. So I'm going to go back to the saw. I think that'll work beautifully. Okay, here we go. Now that's giving me a much better guide. Okay, that's going well. So now I'm just going to check the depth. I want to go, the whole thickness of the back is around 3 millimeters. So I want to go halfway in, so that's about 1.5 millimeters. I've just got to clean up the edges now, and then I can find some wood to fit to it. I'm going to use a much finer file for this. Okay, I am going to create a sandpaper file now. I don't have any double-sided tape, so I'm going to have to stick it on. I'm going to use 240, no actually I'll use 180 grade sandpaper. Alright, to speed this up, I'm going to heat up the bit of timber and the clamping block. Ugh. Alright, I'm going to put some glue on the sandpaper. So I'm making a sandpaper file here. Sometimes you have to make your own tools. Just using PVA glue. Okay, yeah, I spread it super evenly. Ooh, lovely. Look at all that lovely glue going everywhere. Oh, there's actually heaps of glue squeegeeing out the side, so that's good. So I'm going to wrap it up the sides as well. The unfortunate thing is don't have a clamping block for the sides. Okay, so that has glued together very well. There's just some wet glue around the edges. So I'm just going to cut off the sandpaper at the edge. So this is a sandpaper file. Okay, let's just see how level this is. Okay, so that's just about ready to go. So my next step is to find some wood and make the piece that's going to fit in there. But first I'm going to grab some lunch. So now that I have the space prepared, I've got a nice piece of maple here. It's almost unflamed, just has very light flames to it, which is perfect for this. So I'm actually going to cut a fairly thin slither. Like I said, it only needs to be 1.5 millimeters. So I'm just going to go back to the machine and get it all cut and get it all right. Alright, I'm going to take these clamps off and take this bit of timber off that I fitted. Put the little clamps back. Alright. And here's the piece of timber that I prepped. I also got the approximately rough shape happening. So because I prepped this so well, this is going to be really easy to fit. I just got to make sure the sides fit, and they're so close already. I can just fine fit them with a plane. That will happen very quickly. So I think that's just about ready for gluing. So the prepping, I took about an hour. So I showed you little snippets. So it took about an hour to get that 100% flat. Okay, so now all that's left to do really is to glue this on. I put a kind of large clamping block on top of it, just to make sure that the clamping power gets distributed nicely. My glue's already hot, so I'll just grab some glue and glue it on. Put it on both sides. Always glue's a lot better when you put it on both surfaces. Put this clamping block on, and then I'll just do 2 clamps. These are solid clamps that I'm using yet again, and I'll take these clamps off. Okay, that has some solid clamps on it. That'll clamp really nicely. I'll put this aside now to dry, and I'll come back to this tomorrow. Okay, I'm just going to take the clamps off this. It's been a whole 24 hours. Let's have a quick look. Just want to make sure it's all come together nicely. This is always a little bit of a scary moment. Let's have a look. Okay, a little bit of the dust has settled here, but I'll just clean the dust off quickly. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. I will trim that back, but I've got a pretty busy day today, so I won't be doing anything else on here today. What I did do was I kept working on the ribs, like the rib repair. I've been working on the ribs and getting the ribs back on the top block because they had come off, as well as the lining around the outside here. I'm gluing the lining back on and just fixing everything else on the inside of the instrument. Okay, so I am back and the time has come to work this area back to get it matching to the rest of the instrument. So I'm just in the process of just sawing off the excess here so that then I can thin the area down. I'm trying to get rid of a lot of the big heavier materials so I don't have to spend too much time on cutting this back to the right thickness. So next I'm just going to plane this area down a little bit and thin it out. I'm just going to very quickly remove a bit of timber just below the bit where it has to be straight for the top block, just to make things faster. I'm going to use this plane. Yeah, it's nearly there. We're getting close. I'm going to have to do a bit of fine fitting. Let's keep going. So this is approximately, this is the shape I'm going to have to go for. Go out slightly more just to give it some extra strength. Yeah, I'm getting very close. It's a bit of an unusual one because there was an area that had been repaired beforehand and he made it go up quite a bit here, like he left a bit of a bump here. So that's why the got that kind of unusual shape. Okay, I'm going to take a little break and after I come back I'll do the final fitting. Just give myself a little bit of a breather. Hello. So it's been a few days. I've been really busy. But today is the day where I am going to close this violin, which is always really exciting because that's really when all the final work starts. So I'm just making sure that everything fits perfectly here because that's really important. Coffee. The violinist who plays this violin says it's just got this really beautiful, rich sound. So his father, who was a professional trumpet player, actually bought this violin in Sondershausen, which is only about 230, 240 kilometers away from where this violin was made. So the repair label from 1920 is from August Geipel in Stettin. And Stettin is actually on the German-Polish border, but back then it was part of East Prussia. And it was repaired in 1920, so over 100 years ago in Stettin. So that's about 500 kilometers away from where it was made. So the violin must have had quite an interesting journey, but it sounds like it maybe mostly stayed around, you know, the Saxony and East Prussia area. But you never know, we won't know the full story of the instrument. Okay, so I was going to glue the violin shut, but I just, I'm just checking everything. I just found one little crack on the top plate just here, which I've glued. I'm just going to reinforce it. Because I'm mostly focusing on this section, I won't show you this whole process, but I'll show you the finished result. Good morning! Well, it's actually late morning. I'm all ready to glue this violin together. I had to glue that extra little crack here, and I put some reinforcements in here, so just to strengthen it. This is all beautifully finished, ready to go. I've got the back here I've finished this area all ready to go. It's looking beautiful. I'm actually going to end up putting a new fingerboard on this instrument because this one is not the greatest. Oopsies, I got a little visitor. Hello, hello, hello. Maybe stay outside, little buddy. There you go. There you go. Come on. Okay. Now my little visitor's happy, I can get back to gluing on this back. Okay, now things have to move really fast. I'm going to put some extra glue on the new area as well, just to make sure that it definitely glues. I always like to put the middle clamps in first. That way I can make sure it all lines up in the middle first, and then I can work upwards and downwards. Alright, let's have a quick look here. Just have to push everything into the right place so it all lines up. You can clearly see the line where the varnish line, which makes it very easy. Okay, now I'm going to put one clamp here. This one here have to be a little bit more creative. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Just got to wash off the glue a little bit. I wonder how many times this violin has been open in its life. I think it will have been quite a few. Well, we definitely know that it had that repair done in the 1920s. But yeah, I'm very curious. Alright, I just have to put this aside and let it dry now. I'm going to do that overnight, and then tomorrow I'll keep working on the violin. Alright, it's the next evening. I've had a pretty busy day, but I'm also not feeling the best. So I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to take the clamps off. Okay, that's that. And I will also take off this fingerboard, which is just, I'll be putting on a new fingerboard anyway. I'll just temporarily put that on to help me adjust. And I'm just going to hang that up here. Right, hello, it's the next day and I'm feeling a little bit better. So my plan is I've looked for a fingerboard that is a little bit similar to the original fingerboard, so it's got some lighter colors in it. But first I have to clean underneath the fingerboard on the top plate. So I'll quickly do that. It's always good to have the opportunity to clean under here because it's not that often that the fingerboard is off an instrument. Okay, so that is clean. Also cleaned the fingerboard. Sorry, I cleaned the neck here. There was a bit of glue stuck on it. I actually polished this area a bit. So I've just got to glue on the fingerboard and then I will leave that overnight. And I've got to fill these little bits here. I'm just working on that at the moment as well. Okay, one more clamp. Okay, there we go. So that's gonna dry overnight and then I will keep working on it. We're coming up to the weekend, so I may not get to it till Monday. Good morning. So fingerboard's on and just fixing these little spots just in here. I was just enjoying it so much I thought I might let you in just a tiny bit. So I'm just fitting small pieces into here, into the rib where these little cracks were. I just need to soak this area with glue because there's a lot of end grain. And I also want to soak the area in here with glue for a little bit. Just to clarify, so you can see this is a piece of wood that's come out of the tree, and the tree grew up this way. So the timber on top here where it's been cut across is called end grain. So it's end grain here, and take a quick look. I'm going to get some glue and pop it on top so you guys can see how quickly the glue actually absorbs into the timber. So I've got, there we go, we've got a big dab of glue here. See, it's mostly gone now in this shorter time. It just all gets sucked up. But then on the side here, where the glue ran down, the glue doesn't get absorbed by the timber because the pores go this way. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. And that's why I soak the end grain. That has dried now. It's been a little while. So I'm going to put the glue on and put that little piece in. So I'm just going to hang this up and let it dry now. Alright, I'm back. Actually done a little bit of work to this area already, just to, you can see, I didn't actually realize this little piece here was actually put in afterwards as part of a previous repair. Then we've got my little bits. But now I'm going to trim this area here. Also the neck, the foot of the neck is actually very thick. I'm going to trim it so it's exactly the right size, thickness and width. Now I can trim the base of the neck here because that's part of a neck graft, so it's none of this neck is actually original for the instrument. Originally it probably would have been built with a shorter, thinner neck in the Baroque style. But I'm going to work back this entire area now, like carve everything back exactly the way it needs to be to get it to the right shape. So the violinist is Bulgarian. He grew up in Germany, in Saxony.
She went, another man done gone.
Played in the Opera House, Sydney Opera House, by the way, some of the concerts that he's done. Pretty sure it was solo, which is quite an achievement always. You have to be a very good violinist to play solo in the Sydney Opera House. Alright, so I'm going to go down to a finer sandpaper now. It's always a way to work with sandpaper. You start with a coarse grade of sandpaper and you work your way down to a finer grade. Alright, I'm up to 400 grade, which is the finest grade I will probably use here. Some people go finer, but on timber you don't really notice the difference. So once I'm finished with 400 grade sandpaper, I will actually wet the timber so that the grains come back out again. Alright, I'm going to hang that up and let it rest. Alright, just going to very quickly, so I've kind of sanded this all back, made it look beautiful. Now I'm just going to dye the area a bit darker. It'll just make life easier later when with the retouching. So I'm going to, here we go. Bit too intense in a couple of spots, so I'm gonna wipe it off a little bit in those spots. Here we go, same here. Alright. The instrument is such a dark colour that, you know, I can prime it to quite a dark colour. It's gonna make it a lot easier for me when it comes to retouching later. Great. I'm happy with that. I'm actually just going to glue that fingerboard back on, and then I'm just going to leave it rest for a few days. Let this dye dry for a bit. I'm actually going away for a day or two, which should be lovely, going into the forest retreat. It's in the evening, so good night. Good morning! Alright, so I have, as you can see, we've already put a fair bit of colour on this area, and now's the exciting moment where I put some clear varnish on there. So I'll just put in a layer of varnish over the area that I repaired here on the ribs, as well as the button. It's very fast. As you saw, I used a lot of ground colouring underneath here. Yes, it's such a dark colour. I already put quite a dark ground down onto the repair. So the whole instrument has quite a dark colour, which makes the retouching a bit easier because I can already darken the timber quite a bit before I do the actual varnish, coloured varnish work. This is the second coat now. Okay, so I've sanded that area, I've put another coat of clear varnish on, and the next step will be putting on coats of colour varnish. So while I'm waiting, I'm actually in the middle of fitting a bridge for this violin, which is very exciting. So I'm just in the process of doing that, just adjusting the height. I'm not going to show you the whole process of making a bridge and planing my fingerboard, because I've got other videos about that. But what I really want you to see is how I'm doing this button graft and how it affects the instrument. Okay, all done. Now comes the fun part where I actually get to do the color retouching. Here's my colors, my dry colors. I mainly use red, yellow and black, or sometimes blue, and from those you can pretty much mix anything. In this case I'm going to go red, yellow and black because it's quite a dark color. Sometimes colors have just the tiniest tinge of purple, believe it or not, and that's where blue is actually really good. Now it's just a matter of retouching. I'm going to work on this area. Let's just see how this color reacts. Let's get some more light in here. That's looking really good. Alright. Alright, now I've got to put some clear varnish over the top. Well, already looking a whole lot better than it was before. You can see that area there where I fitted all those pieces, and then the rest of the neck's looking really good as well. Okay, that's me done for the night. I'm going to let that dry overnight and I'll get back to it in the morning. It's the following morning and this varnish has dried really nicely. The area, I mean, it's already looking like this is the area I'm retouching at the moment. The button's looking great. It just needs a little bit of work around here. Even the foot of the neck, the heel of the neck is looking nice. So I'm just going to sand the varnish back a bit just to even everything out. I use a little bit of water as well. So I've finished that, and now it's time to add a little bit more color. So the whole idea behind retouching is to really match it in with what was there before. So basically it ends up invisible. Okay, so I have let this dry. It's starting to look really good, this area. This area is pretty much finished. I'm still working a bit on the foot of the neck here. So I'm just working on matching this. Okay. Alright, some more clear varnish on here as well. Okay. Alright, well, I'm just going to let this dry overnight and then I will get back to it tomorrow. Good morning. It's another beautiful day in paradise. I've got my coffee. Today is pretty much the day I think I'll be able to put strings on this Meisel violin, which is super exciting. It's looking really good. So really my main job is to what they call cutting back the varnish and then polishing it. By cutting back, I just mean using very fine sandpaper and sanding it back very carefully. I may not need more coats of varnish, but we'll just see. But I'll definitely put the strings on today, and even if I still have a tiny bit of work left to do in this area, that's okay. I can do that while the strings are on. Okay, so I'm using 800 grade sandpaper, and I also wet the sandpaper while I do this. Okay, now just got to be careful when I'm doing this, and the thing I have to be careful about when you're sanding, you don't want to sand too far and sand off the work that you've done, the varnish work that you've done. Okay, now I need to dry the area. Okay, so the next step is polishing the area. It's so exciting because this is where the whole repair just comes together, and see it the way it's going to look when it's finished. So I love this part of a restoration or repair. So the idea when you're retouching is to get the same kind of varnish picture back as before. So it's not always about, you know, just very evenly getting one color. For an old instrument like that has a lot of wear and tear, you're actually trying to get a slightly uneven look. So yeah, it's really starting to look a whole lot better. So this is the area where I did the repair down through here. Like I said, it's all about getting the varnish picture right at the end. The great thing is I can do that final bit of retouching after I've put on the strings. The top plate is also really interesting because you can see all those beautiful grain marks along there, and you can see how hand carved the instrument is. Oh, look how nice it's starting to look. That's just beautiful. You know, that's just amazing. I mean, the violin is close to just under 300 years old, 260 or something like that. So the great thing is I've already done the bridge, I've planed the fingerboard, the pegs are here. So I'm very close to putting the strings on this violin. Alright, exciting news. I'm about to put the strings on this violin. I've done a little bit more polishing, so I'm getting very close to being happy with the way everything's looking. So I'm going to use dominant strings, and I'm probably not going to show you the whole process. First of all, I'm going to clean the tailpiece. It's gross. That looks much better. I've already put peg paste on the pegs. So let us go. So the player, he did a lot of different gigs, from kind of jazzy to experimental. He performed at a TEDx at Sydney Opera House. Did some busking, and you know, lots of different ways to earn a living as a musician. I just want to see how the original soundpost works. It's a very tall instrument. Oh no, that's way too long. So yeah, no, I'll be making a shorter soundpost for this. And by the incredible magic of editing, here it is. The new soundpost. It's a bit shorter than the original one, and this should work. Such a long soundpost, just amazing. Now the chin rest that came with the violin is just so uncomfortable, so I'm going to pop this one on. It's a Tekka chin rest. I know it's a lot more comfortable, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of a try out. So here it is, it's all ready to go. The Carl Christian Meisel violin from Klingenthal, probably around the 1760s, which makes it over 160 years old, which is just amazing. It's a beautiful violin, and I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. Just got to tune it. This violin. I'm going to do some more tweaking to the sound. I've still got 1 to 2 weeks before he picks it up, so I'm literally going to just leave it here, see how it settles in, maybe do a tiny bit more polishing. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Remember to like it if you like what you've seen. Subscribe to my channel so you find out every time I post a new video, and make sure you hit the little bell, because when you hit the little bell you get a notification every time I post a video. Thanks so much for watching. Keep making beautiful music, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.